The summons. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council echoed with the chittering laughter of 1,000 species. Ambassador Kira Vance stood in the center of the circular chamber, her boots planted firmly on the polished obsidian floor as holographic displays flickered around her like malicious fireflies. Humanity requests. What? High Magistrate Zethkara's voice dripped with amusement, his 4 mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among the Vexthal. The insectoid leader's compound eyes refracted the chamber's light into 1,000 mocking rainbows. Kira's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. We request formal recognition of our territorial boundaries and equal representation on the council. The chamber erupted in cacophony. Laughter, whistles, and sounds no human throat could produce filled the air. In the elevated viewing galleries, representatives from 200 civilizations watched the spectacle with unconcealed glee. Equal representation? Grand Admiral Thoxnell of the Carathian hegemony rose from his floating throne, his crimson scales gleaming under the bioluminescent ceiling. You've been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. My people crossed the void while your ancestors were still discovering fire. 3,000 years we've maintained this council, added Sovereign Yalara, her telepathic voice resonating in everyone's minds. The ethereal's translucent form pulsed with condescending energy. And you believe 200 years of stumbling through space grants you a seat at this table? Kira had prepared for this. She'd studied every council session for the past 50 years, memorized the voting patterns, understood the power dynamics. But nothing could have prepared her for the sheer wall of contempt that greeted humanity's petition. We've established colonies on 47 worlds, she continued, pulling up holographic displays that showed humanity's expansion. Our population exceeds 30 billion. We've made first contact with 47 worlds? Zethkara interrupted, his laughter intensifying. The Vexthal claim 47 worlds in a single solar cycle. You speak of numbers we consider quaint. The word hung in the air like poison. Kira's second-in-command, Commander Drayton Reeves, shifted uncomfortably beside her. She could feel his anger, could sense how his fingers twitched toward a sidearm he wasn't carrying. They'd both been soldiers before they were diplomats. Old habits died hard. Perhaps, Yalara's voice echoed again, humanity should focus on surviving before seeking to govern. Your species war among yourselves with alarming frequency. You deplete your own resources. You barely understand the fundamental forces that govern this galaxy. We understand enough, Kira said quietly. Do you? Thoxnell descended from his throne, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegation. Do you understand the Krell swarm that devoured the Prelian civilization in under a month? Do you comprehend the void singers who can tear reality itself apart? Do you grasp the true horror of the consuming dark that lurks in the spaces between stars? He leaned closer, and Kira could smell the sulfuric breath that escaped his nostrils. You are children playing with toys you don't understand in a universe that will gladly devour you. The only reason you still exist is because you are beneath notice. The chamber fell silent. Every species present waited for the human response, expecting pleas, anger, or desperation. Instead, Kira smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just been given exactly the ammunition they needed. Beneath notice, she repeated. Is that the council's official position? Zethkara waved a dismissive claw. Consider your petition denied. Return to your little worlds and be grateful we don't simply claim them ourselves. Humanity is granted protectorate status at best. You will pay tribute, you will follow council law, and you will be silent. And if we refuse? Drayton asked, his voice hard. The laughter returned, harder and crueler than before. Then you will learn why 1,000 civilizations bow to this council, Thoxnell said. Refuse and we will teach you humility through fire and ash. We have reduced entire star systems to cosmic dust for less than defiance. Kira nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. She tapped the comm device on her wrist, recording every word, every laugh, every threat. I see. Then humanity has your final answer? You have our only answer, Zethkara confirmed. Now leave before we decide your presence itself is an insult. As Kira and Drayton turned to leave, none of the assembled species noticed the small smile that played at the corner of her lips. None of them saw Drayton's subtle nod, or the encrypted message that pulsed from Kira's comm device to a waiting fleet at the edge of the system. None of them understood that humanity hadn't come to beg. They'd come to deliver an ultimatum. And the council had just made their fatal mistack. The rot within. 6 weeks after the humiliation at the council chambers, Kira sat in the dimly lit command center of Outpost Meridian, humanity's most remote listening station. Around her, holographic displays painted the darkness with pale blue light, each screen showing a different sector of Council space. "Tell me what we're seeing, Nalani," Kira said, addressing the brilliant analyst who'd been humanity's secret weapon for 3 years. Dr. Nalani Okoye adjusted her neural interface, and the display shifted to show economic data that would make any accountant weep. "It's worse than we thought. The Council isn't just corrupt, it's dying." She pulled up financial records that humanity's intelligence network had been gathering since their first contact with galactic civilization. Trade routes appeared as glowing lines connecting thousands of worlds, but Nalani highlighted the anomalies in red. The Carathian hegemony? Their economy should have collapsed 40 years ago. The only reason they're still afloat is systematic tribute extraction from 73 protectorate species. Nalani's fingers danced through the data. But the tribute keeps decreasing. Species are dying out under their taxation. Drayton leaned against the console, arms crossed. "So Thoxnell's people are bleeding their subjects dry? Not just the Carathians. Everyone." Nalani expanded the view to show the entire Council economic network. "The Vexthal claim 47 worlds per cycle? That's because they abandoned 45 after stripping them of resources. The Ethereals? Their enlightened guidance is really just psychic manipulation forcing species into perpetual death." Kira studied the data with a grim expression. "How long? Until complete economic collapse? Maybe 50 years. Until wars start breaking out over resources? 5 years. Maybe less." Nalani pulled up another screen. "There's more. Military deployments." The star map shifted to show Council fleet positions and Kira's breath caught. "That's not a defensive posture," she whispered. "No," confirmed Admiral Marcus Thorne, appearing via holographic transmission from Earth Command. The weathered officer looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Those are interdiction fleets. The Council is preparing to lock down entire sectors." "Against what threat?" Drayton asked. "Against rebellion." Thorne's image flickered. "We've made contact with 17 species under Council rule. 13 of them are on the verge of revolt. The Council knows it. They're preparing to massacre billions to maintain control." The room fell silent. Kira thought back to the chamber, to the laughter and contempt. She'd thought it was simple arrogance. Now she understood, it was desperation wearing the mask of superiority. "The Valkyrie are already moving," Nalani added quietly. "A peaceful species. For billion souls. They asked for reduced tribute because a plague decimated their workforce." The Council's response. She didn't need to show the images. Everyone in the room had seen the intelligence reports. An entire world reduced to smoking glass. "They called it an example," Kira said, her voice hollow. "They're calling it necessary enforcement," Thorne corrected. "And according to our sources, 20 more species are on the list for corrective action, if they show any signs of resistance." Drayton slammed his fist on the console. "We need to release this. Show the galaxy what the Council really is." "Who'd believe us?" Nalani countered. "We're the children playing with toys, remember? Any evidence we present would be dismissed as human fabrication." "Then we find someone who can't be dismissed," Kira said, her mind racing. "There have to be Council members who aren't complicit. Species who joined believing in the ideals, not the reality." Thorne nodded. "Our intelligence has identified several possibilities. The Zypharians maintain a seat on the Council, but they rarely vote with the majority. The Luminar Collective has been vocal about reform. And there's an interesting player, a Vexthal named Kirex who's been filing formal objections to Council actions for the past decade." "A Vexthal?" Drayton looked skeptical. "One of Zethkara's own people?" "A political rival," Thorne clarified. "Kirex represents a reform faction that's been systematically marginalized. If we could get him the evidence we've gathered." "It's still the word of a fringe politician against the High Magistrate," Kira argued. She stood, pacing the small command center. "We need something bigger. Something that can't be ignored or explained away." Nalani pulled up another file, this one marked with the highest security clearance. "There might be something. 3 months ago, we intercepted a Council Black Ops communication. They're planning something called Operation Cleansing Tide." The details filled the screens, and with each line, Kira felt her blood run colder. "They're going to purge 40 systems," she breathed. 40 species. Billions of lives. They're calling it stabilization. "It's genocide," Drayton said flatly. "And it begins in 3 months," Thorne added. The fleets are already moving into position. Kira looked at the faces around her, human and holographic alike. Each one waited for her decision. Then we have 3 months, she said quietly, to bring down an empire. The Underground Alliance. The Twilight Market existed in the forgotten spaces between stars, an ancient station built by a long-dead civilization and now maintained by smugglers, refugees, and those who preferred the galaxy's shadows. Here, credits mattered more than species, and questions about origin were considered poor etiquette. Kira navigated the market's labyrinthine corridors with practiced ease, her civilian clothes and holographic disguise making her appear as a Belascan trader. Beside her, Drayton's bulk was disguised as a Korgoth mercenary, complete with prosthetic ridges and false identification that had cost more than a small warship. Contact is in the Scattered Star Cantina, Nalani's voice whispered through Kira's neural implant. The analyst was safely aboard their cloaked ship, monitoring a dozen security feeds simultaneously. Table 7. He's alone but watching the entrances. The cantina was a riot of species and smells, everything from methane breathers in environmental suits to silicon-based lifeforms that communicated through crystalline resonance. Kira made her way through the crowd, careful to avoid attention. At table 7 sat a Vexthal unlike any she'd seen in the council chambers. Kirex's carapace bore scars that spoke of violence, and one of his compound eyes had been replaced with cybernetic implants. He watched her approach without apparent surprise. "Ambassador Vance," he said in perfect English, his translator perfectly calibrated. "You're either very brave or very foolish to meet me here." "Maybe both," Kira replied, sliding into the seat across from him. Drayton positioned himself nearby, watching the room. "You agreed to this meeting." "I did." Kirex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. When a human delegation offers evidence of council corruption, curiosity outweighs caution. Even for a disgraced politician like myself. "You're not disgraced," Kira said. "You're inconvenient. There's a difference. Tell that to the assassin Zethkara sends every few months." Kirex gestured to his scars. "The last one almost succeeded. But you didn't come here to discuss my survival. You mentioned evidence." Kira placed a data crystal on the table. "Economic records. Military deployments. Intercepted communications. Everything we've gathered about council operations for the past 3 years." Kirex didn't reach for the crystal immediately. "And what does humanity want in return?" "Help stopping a genocide." The Vexthal's cybernetic eye word, focusing on her face. "Operation Cleansing Tide." Kira's heart skipped. "You know about it?" "I suspected. I've watched the fleet movements, seen the resource allocations. Zethkara isn't subtle when he believes himself secure." Kirex finally picked up the crystal, examining it. "But suspicion isn't proof. And proof means nothing without the power to act on it." "That's where we come in," Drayton said, his voice modulated by the disguise. "Humanity might be young but we're not powerless." "No." Kirex's attention shifted to the disguised commander. "The council could sterilize every human world in a month. What power do you possess against that?" "The power of the desperate," Kira answered. "We have nothing to lose. The council made that clear. But 40 species about to be purged? They have everything to lose. And we know where to find them." Understanding dawned in Kirex's features. "You're building an alliance." "We're offering hope," Kira corrected. "We can't fight the council directly. We're not that stupid. But we can coordinate resistance, share intelligence, help evacuate civilians before the purges begin. And with someone like you lending legitimacy to our evidence." "I would be executed within days," Kirex said flatly. "Or you become the focal point of real opposition." Kira leaned forward. "How many council members are like you? How many species joined believing in unity and cooperation, only to discover they'd signed a pact with slavers?" Kirex was silent for a long moment. Around them, the cantina's noise continued, oblivious to the conversation that might reshape the galaxy. "The Zypharians would listen," he said finally. "Their representative, Elder Savros, has privately expressed concerns. The Luminar Collective is already investigating corruption but lacks hard evidence. The Thornback clans maintain neutrality, but they hate waste, and the council is nothing but waste now. Can you get them this evidence?" Kira tapped the crystal. "I can get them the evidence. But you need to understand what you're starting." Kirex's voice dropped lower. "The council has maintained order for 3,000 years. It's corrupt, yes. Brutal, certainly. But it's also the only reason the Krell swarm hasn't consumed the entire galactic arm. the only force holding back the Void Singers. If we destabilize the Council now. Those threats exist, Kira interrupted. But right now the Council is the threat. To humanity. To 40 species they're planning to exterminate. To anyone who doesn't fit their vision of proper subordination. And you believe humanity can do better? Kira met his gaze steadily. I believe nobody should have the power the Council has amassed. Not humanity, not the Vexthal, not anyone. I believe in a galaxy where species cooperate because they choose to, not because they're terrorized into submission. Kirek stood, the crystal clutched in his claw. Idealism is dangerous, Ambassador. It starts wars. So does genocide, Drayden countered. The Vexthal nodded slowly. I'll contact the others. But if we do this there's no going back. The Council will brand us all as traitors. Then we'll be traitors together, Kira said. And maybe we'll build something better from the ashes. The first strike. The Carathian supply depot orbited a dying red giant, its automated systems processing resources from 100 subjugated worlds. It was one of 7,000 such installations, each one a cog in the Council's vast economic machine. It was also the perfect target. Captain Jin Yamazaki checked her tactical display aboard the UHSV Defiant Dawn, one of humanity's newest stealth frigates. Around her ship, 15 other vessels hung in the void, their signatures masked by technology the Council had dismissed as primitive. All ships report ready, Commander Park relayed from his station. Civilian evacuation teams are standing by. Jin nodded, studying the depot's defenses. Automated turrets, shield generators, and a small garrison of Carathian security forces. Under normal circumstances, it would take a fleet to crack this installation. They were about to do it with 16 ships and a plan that would either be studied in military academies or serve as a cautionary tale about human recklessness. This is Defiant Dawn to all vessels, Jin announced. Remember, we're not here to kill anyone. We're here to send a message. Execute on my mark. The plan was insane. It was also brilliant, cobbled together from 3 weeks of intelligence work and humanity's particular talent for creative problem-solving. Mark. The stealth ships split into 3 groups. The first launched targeted electromagnetic pulses that overloaded the depot's sensor arrays, blinding it. The second deployed hijacking viruses that Nalani's team had spent months perfecting, specifically designed to exploit security flaws in Council military systems. The third group, led by Defiant Dawn, began broadcasting on every frequency. Attention Carathian security forces, Jin announced. Your depot is now surrounded. Your weapons are offline. Your communications are jammed. You have 2 choices, evacuate peacefully, or stay and die when we destroy this installation. On the tactical display, Jin watched the depot's defenders scramble, trying to understand what was happening. Their weapons did activate, the viruses weren't perfect, but human point defense systems intercepted every shot. They're not evacuating, Park noted. Give them time, Jin replied. Would you abandon your post based on one transmission? She opened a channel to the garrison commander. Commander Ithros, I know you can hear this. Check your tactical feats. We've painted your shield generators with targeting lasers. We can drop them anytime we want. We have kinetic impactors locked on your ammunition stores. And we have visual confirmation that your escape pods are online. She paused, letting that sink in. We're not here to kill you. We're here to take this depot offline. You can either leave alive or stay and die for a regime that sees you as disposable. Choose. Minutes ticked by. On the surface, nothing seemed to happen, but Jun could see the small telltales on her display. Power fluctuations, internal communications traffic, life signs moving toward the escape pod bays. Then one by one pods began launching. Civilian teams, you're clear to approach, Jin ordered. Secure the depot and begin evacuation of captured personnel. Medical teams standing by. As escape pods scattered into space, picked up by waiting humanitarian vessels, Jin's ships moved in. The depot had been designed to process resources, but it also contained something far more valuable. Detailed records of Council operations across 3 sectors. Captain, Park called out, we're getting a transmission. It's not Carathian. The view screen flickered, and suddenly Jin was looking at hundreds of faces, Valkyrie, Theshan, Korthek, species she didn't even recognize. They were prisoners held in the depot's lower levels as forced labor. Please, one of them said in broken Galactic common. Please don't leave us here. Jin felt something cold settle in her stomach. The intelligence reports had mentioned labor camps, but seeing them was different. Commander Park, get rescue teams down there now. All of them. I want every prisoner off that station within the hour. Captain, that's going to extend our exposure window? I don't care. We're not leaving anyone behind. As human marines and medical personnel swarmed the station, Jeanne watched the rescue unfold. Each prisoner loaded onto ships, each medical scan, each tearful reunion as families thought long dead found each other again. This was what the council really was. Not the gleaming chambers and high-minded rhetoric, but prison camps and slave labor hidden in the dark corners of space. Captain, we've downloaded the data cores, Park reported. And we've placed charges on the primary reactors. Detonation in 30 minutes. All ships begin withdrawal, Jeanne ordered. And broadcast the footage. Everything we've recorded here, the prisoners, the labor conditions, all of it. Send it on every frequency. Ma'am, that will reveal our position. I know. Do it anyway. As Defiant Dawn and her sister ships slipped back into the void, the depot exploded behind them in silent fury. And across 100 worlds, on 1,000 networks, images of council brutality began to spread. The first strike was complete. The galaxy was watching. And humanity had just announced that they weren't asking for permission anymore. 3 hours later, Zeth Kara would watch those same broadcasts in his private chambers, mandibles clenched in rage, and issue the order that would change everything. Find them. Find every human in council space. And make an example that will echo for 1,000 years. New Seattle burned. From orbit, Commander Lyra Chen watched her homeworld die. The Carathian battle fleet had arrived without warning, bypassed the defensive platforms with overwhelming force, and begun systematic bombardment of the colony's major cities. Evacuations? She asked, though she already knew the answer. In progress, but there's not enough time, her tactical officer replied. Lieutenant Kaza's voice shook. Civilian transports are launching, but the Carathians are targeting them. They're not even pretending this is a military action. Lyra's hands gripped the arms of her command chair hard enough to hurt. The UHSV Resolute Stand was a destroyer, powerful by human standards but hopelessly outmatched by the 3 dreadnoughts currently reducing her world to rubble. Ma'am, Admiral Thorne is ordering all ships to fall back to the rally point, Kaze reported. Negative. We have civilians in the air. We hold until they're clear. Commander, if we stay we die. Then we die. Lyra's voice was ice. But not before we hurt them. Weapons, target the lead dreadnought's engine clusters. Helm, bring us in close. Let's see how comfortable they are with knife fighting. Resolute Stand dove toward the Carathian fleet, its comparatively tiny mass accelerating to attack speeds that would have torn apart most vessels. Lyra's crew were veterans of the depot raids, experienced in the kind of asymmetric warfare that humanity had perfected over months of hit-and-run operations. They were also terrified. Firing solution locked, weapons reported. Fire everything. Missiles streaked across the void, followed by railgun slugs moving at appreciable fractions of light speed. The lead dreadnought's shields flared, absorbing most of the damage, but several shots punched through, crippling one of its massive engines. More civilian transports away, Kaze reported. But sensors are picking up. Oh God. On the view screen, a civilian carrier exploded, caught by Carathian fire. Lyra watched 3,000 souls vaporize in an instant. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire, everything we have. The battle became a dance of desperation. Resolute Stand weaved between dreadnought fire, too fast and small to target easily, launching everything in its arsenal at the lumbering giants. 2 more civilian ships escaped. Then 5 more. Then the second dreadnought scored a direct hit. Hull breach, decks 4 through 7. Life support failing in sections B and C. Case shouted over alarms. Engineering reports main power at 40%. Keep firing, Lyra ordered. On her tactical display she could see more civilian ships making it to jump distance. Almost there. Almost. Multiple jump signatures. Sensors called out. Human fleet inbound. The void tore open as humanity's rapid response fleet emerged from hyperspace. 8 cruisers, 20 destroyers, and the supercarrier Indomitable Fury appeared in attack formation, immediately engaging the Carathian forces. This is Admiral Chen to all units, Lyra's aunt's voice boomed across the channel. Concentrate fire on the dreadnoughts. Rescue teams begin recovery operations. And someone get my niece out of that scrap heap before she does something else stupid. Despite everything, Lyra smiled. The battle turned from massacre to actual combat. Human ships swarmed the Carathian vessels like wolves around mammoths, launching coordinated strikes that exploited every weakness, every gap in shields, every moment of vulnerability. The Carathians fought back with the arrogance of superior firepower, but humanity had learned hard lessons about fighting larger opponents. When the third dreadnought suffered a catastrophic reactor breach, the remaining Carathian ships retreated. The victory was hollow. New Seattle still burned. Lyra materialized on the bridge of indomitable fury via emergency transport, her uniform singed, her face streaked with sweat and soot. Admiral Chen pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. "Your mother would be proud," she whispered. "And furious." "How bad is it?" Lyra asked, pulling away to look at the damage reports scrolling across multiple screens. 43,000 dead on New Seattle's surface, Admiral Chen replied, her voice hollow. 8,000 more on destroyed transports. We evacuated 200,000, but millions remain trapped planetside under bombardment. The colony? Infrastructure is shattered. It'll take years to rebuild. The Admiral pulled up a star map, red indicators blooming across it like a virus. And New Seattle isn't alone. The Council is hitting human colonies across 6 sectors simultaneously. This is coordinated. This is revenge. Lyra studied the map, feeling rage and despair warring in her chest. Casualties. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions before this is over. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Zeth Kara sent a message with the attack fleet. He's declaring humanity an existential threat to Council stability. He's authorized unlimited force to eliminate our species. Genocide, Lyra said quietly. Genocide, Admiral Chen confirmed. He's calling it necessary correction of a rabid species. The bridge fell silent. Every officer present understood what this meant. This wasn't a police action or a punitive expedition. This was extermination. "Ma'am, we're receiving transmissions from the Underground Alliance," the communications officer reported. Curex, the Zypharians, even some Vexthal factions. They're condemning the attacks. Some are offering sanctuary to human refugees. Some, Admiral Chen repeated bitterly. The rest of the galaxy watches while we burn. Not all of them, another voice interjected. On the view screen, Ambassador Kira appeared, transmitting from a secure location. Her face was bruised, her arm in a makeshift sling. The attack on New Seattle has shocked neutral parties. Species that sat on the fence are choosing sides. Zeth Kara overplayed his hand. "We're still dying," Lyra said flatly. "Yes," Kira acknowledged. "We are. But we're not dying quietly. And that's making all the difference." The fracture. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in its 3,000-year history. Instead of the usual carefully orchestrated procedure, the chamber roiled with chaos. Species shouted at each other, holographic displays flickered with casualty reports, and for the first time anyone could remember, council members were openly calling for Zeth Kara's resignation. Order. The High Magistrate's voice boomed through amplifiers, but the effect was diminished. He no longer commanded automatic respect. "I will have order. You'll have nothing." Elder Savros of the Zypharians rose, his aged form trembling with fury. The reptilian diplomat had served on the council for 6 decades and never raised his voice. Until now. "Nothing but the blood of innocence on your claws." The viewing galleries were packed with representatives from minor species, many of whom had never been allowed to attend a council session before. Curex had orchestrated their presence, exploiting obscure procedural rules that Zeth Kara had ignored for years. The human threat required decisive action, Zeth Kara insisted, but even he seemed aware of how weak that sounded. They attacked council installations, stole military assets. They rescued slaves. Savros slammed his staff against the floor. They freed prisoners that you claim didn't exist. I have seen the footage, as has everyone in this galaxy. Labor camps. Torture facilities. Children worked to death in processing plants. Fabrications, Thoxnell interjected, but the Grand Admiral's voice lacked conviction. Human propaganda. Then explain the 700,000 refugees now under Zypharian protection, Savros countered. Are they fabrications? Are the scars on their bodies propaganda? The trauma in their eyes? Yalara, the ethereal sovereign, floated forward. Her telepathic voice, usually so controlled, rippled with uncertainty. The Council has always maintained that order requires difficult choices. Some suffering is inevitable to maintain stability. Inevitable? Luminar Collective Representative Thera activated a holographic display. The crystalline being's light pulsed with barely contained rage. Inevitable? Watch this. The display showed New Seattle burning. It showed civilian transports being destroyed. It showed Carathian soldiers executing human survivors who had surrendered. It showed children's bodies in the rubble. The chamber fell silent. "This is not order," Thera said quietly. "This is not stability. This is the action of tyrants who have mistaken fear for respect." "The Luminar Collective votes no confidence in the current council leadership," another Luminar added. "And we are withdrawing our economic support effective immediately." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Luminar Collective controlled 40% of the galaxy's energy production. Their withdrawal would cripple the council's infrastructure within weeks. "You would destabilize the entire galactic order over one species?" Zethkara demanded. "The humans brought this on themselves?" "Did they?" Kirex stood, his scarred carapace catching the light. "Or did we bring this on ourselves? I have reviewed the evidence the humans provided. All of it. The council has been running a protection racket for centuries, taxing species into poverty, using military force to suppress any resistance, and eliminating troublesome populations when they became inconvenient." He pulled up financial records, military deployments, intercepted communications. Everything humanity had gathered, everything Kirex had verified through his own sources. "The humans didn't attack us unprovoked. They defended themselves against a system designed to exploit them. And when they fought back, when they exposed our corruption, we responded with genocide." "Traitor?" Zethkara hissed. "Guilty," Kirex replied calmly. "I am a traitor to this corrupt institution. I am a traitor to the lies we've told ourselves. I am a traitor to the system that has slowly strangled the life from this galaxy while claiming to protect it." He turned to address the entire chamber, his voice carrying to every species present. "The humans have a saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant. They have shone light into our darkest corners, and we hate them for it because we know what that light reveals. It reveals us. It reveals what we've become." "And what have we become?" Thoxnell asked, his voice bitter. "The very thing we claim to prevent," Elder Savros answered. "We have become the tyrants, the oppressors, the civilization that future species will study and ask, how did they justify such cruelty?" Zethkara looked around the chamber, seeing for the first time the cracks in his authority. Species that had always voted in lockstep were now murmuring dissent. The viewing galleries, filled with minor species he'd always dismissed, watched him with undisguised contempt. "This session is adjourned," he announced abruptly. "We will reconvene when order is restored." "There will be no order," Thera declared. "Not under your leadership. The Luminar Collective is formally withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We encourage other species of conscience to do the same." "As do the Zypharians," Savros added. "And the Thornback clans," another voice called. "The Meridian Alliance stands with the Reformists. The Crystalline Concordat withdraws." One by one, species declared their withdrawal. Not all. Many remained loyal to the council either from genuine belief or fear. But enough left that the chamber, which had always been full, suddenly seemed empty. Zethkara watched his empire fracture in real time. And in a hidden command center, Ambassador Kira watched the broadcast with tears streaming down her face. Not tears of joy, the cost had been too high for that. But tears of hope. The galaxy was finally listening. A new dawn. 3 months after the council fractured, Kira stood in a very different chamber. This one was smaller, built hastily on a neutral station that humanity had helped construct. Instead of elevated thrones and intimidating architecture, there were simple tables arranged in a circle. Every species sat at the same level. "The Accord of Free Species will now come to order," Elder Savros announced, his voice tired but determined. Around him sat representatives from 47 species, some who had withdrawn from the council, others who had been liberated from its control, and a few, like humanity, who had never belonged to begin with. It wasn't a government. Not yet. It was barely an alliance. But it was a beginning. "First order of business," Kirex said, consulting his datapad. "Humanitarian crisis management. We have 14 million refugees from council attacks. Food supplies are running critically low in 7 sectors. And medical resources are stretched beyond capacity. Humanity pledges 15 supply ships," Kira announced. "It's not enough, but it's what we can spare while defending our remaining colonies. The Zypharians will contribute medical personnel and supplies," Savros added. "We have already converted 3 of our agricultural worlds to refugee support operations. The Luminar Collective can provide power infrastructure," Thera offered. "Temporary but sufficient for refugee camps." The conversation continued, practical and unglamorous. This wasn't the grand rhetoric of the old council. This was the messy, difficult work of actually trying to help people rather than rule them. What about the council remnants? Someone asked. It was the question everyone had been avoiding. Zethkara had not gone quietly. After the mass withdrawal, he had consolidated the remaining loyalist species, about 60% of the old council's military strength, and declared the reformists traitors. Skirmishes had broken out across 24 sectors. Nothing approaching full-scale war yet, but the potential loomed like a storm on the horizon. Their fleets are repositioning, reported Admiral Chin, appearing via hologram. Defensive posture for now, but they're building towards something. Maybe a decisive strike, maybe a siege strategy. Intelligence is unclear. They're waiting for us to collapse, Kirek said bluntly. They believe this accord will fall apart due to internal disagreements. That species will turn on each other without the council's guiding hand. They might be right, Thoxnell's voice cut through the chamber. Everyone turned, shocked to see the former Grand Admiral standing at the entrance, his scales dulled, his bearing defeated. I request permission to address this assembly. Silence. Then Kira spoke. Let him speak. Thoxnell entered slowly and Kira could see the change in him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something she'd never expected to see in the proud Carathian, shame. I commanded the fleet that attacked New Seattle, he began, his voice rough. I gave the order to fire on civilian transports. I told my soldiers that humans were vermin to be exterminated. And I believed it. I believed we were righteous. He paused, mandibles trembling. Then I watched the recordings. All of them. The labor camps. The torture facilities. The children. And I realized I had become the very monster my ancestors fought against when the Carathians were themselves enslaved 5,000 years ago. Why are you here? Drayton asked, his voice hard. He had lost friends on New Seattle. To testify, Thoxnell replied. I have complete records of council military operations, black sites, planned purges. Everything. I will provide it all to this accord, and I will face whatever justice you deem appropriate. But first, I need to tell you what Zethkara is planning. He activated a holographic display showing fleet deployments that made Kira's blood run cold. He's going to attack the refugee camps. All of them. Simultaneously. He believes that if he can eliminate the evidence of council crimes, meaning the refugees themselves, the remaining galaxy will have no choice but to accept council authority again. That's insane, Elder Savros breathed. That's 14 million lives. It's also classic council strategy, Kirek said bitterly. Eliminate the witnesses. Control the narrative. Maintain power through terror. When? Admiral Chin demanded. 2 weeks. Maybe less. He's waiting for the fleet convergence to complete. Thoxnell met Kira's eyes. I cannot undo what I've done. But I can help you stop this. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for Thoxnell's immediate arrest, others wanted to focus on the threat, and a few questioned whether this was all an elaborate trap. Kira let them argue for a moment, then stood. The room gradually quieted. Admiral Thoxnell will be confined to quarters under guard until we can properly address his crimes, she announced. But first we use his intelligence. Because if Zethkara succeeds, everything we've built here dies. The old council endures. And the galaxy learns that standing up to tyranny only results in extermination. She looked around the circle, meeting each representative's eyes. 3 months ago the council mocked humanity. They called us children. They called us insignificant. They were certain we would be crushed and forgotten. Kira smiled, and there was steel in it. They were wrong. Not because humanity is special. Not because we're stronger or smarter or more advanced. But because we refused to accept that cruelty was the price of order. We refused to believe that the strong must always dominate the weak. We refused to be quiet. She gestured to the species around her. And we inspired others to refuse as well. Every species here represents a choice, to stand up rather than kneel down, to build rather than rule, to cooperate rather than conquer. Pretty words, Drayton muttered, but he was smiling. Pretty words that we're going to back up with action, Admiral Chin interjected. Because we have 2 weeks to prepare defenses that can hold off the largest military force ever assembled. And I have an idea. It's crazy. It's desperate. And it's exactly the kind of plan humans are good at. She pulled up tactical displays showing the refugee camps, potential fleet positions, and a proposal so audacious that several representatives gasped. We're not going to defend the camps, Chin explained. We're going to make Zethkara come to us. On our terms. On ground we choose. And we're going to show the galaxy that the age of the council is over. Elder Savros studied the plan, his eyes widening. This could work. Or it could get us all killed. Everything could get us all killed, Curex pointed out. At least this way we die trying something magnificent. The vote was unanimous. 2 weeks later, when Zethkara's fleet arrived at what they thought were refugee camps, they found something else entirely. They found an allied armada. They found coordinated defenses. They found species working together not out of fear but out of choice. They found that humanity's real gift to the galaxy wasn't military might or technological innovation. It was the simple, revolutionary idea that a better way was possible. The battle that followed would be remembered as the end of the old order and the beginning of something new. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. And in the command center of the indomitable fury, Ambassador Kira Vance watched the first shots of the battle and smiled. The galaxy had mocked humanity, right before the Empire collapsed. And from its ashes they would build something worth believing in.